What's going on, guys? Steven with the Animal Factory here, and today we're going over the squat, the most glorious of exercises to ever be performed in the gym. Now, I do not like going into the gym and looking at people when they squat. I actually look at the floor because I hate watching people try and perform this exercise. For some reason, people have no idea how to squat ever. So we're gonna break it down today, make it a little bit simpler, and get it done. Hey, what's going on? So, looking at our hand placement on the bar, I want to be just outside my shoulders, okay? Now, the point of bringing your hands in a little bit closer versus wide is to make sure that you're as tight to the bar as humanly possible, okay? So, I roll the bar forward into the rack. I get my hand placement right where I want it, nice and tight and close. Okay, once I'm here, I'm ready to step underneath the bar and get as tight as I can. So I'm gonna push the bar into the rack. I'm gonna pull myself into the bar. I'm actively pulling down with my hands and elbows. I'm cinching up my lats, right? I'm pulling down and pushing into the rack at the same time, okay? Now you don't want the bar too high up on your neck. You want it nice and low on the meaty part of your back where your traps are, okay? So once I'm tight here, I'm ready to step underneath the bar. I take that big step. I have a nice feet shoulder width. I bring my hips to the party and I get my chest up nice and tall, okay? You don't want to step underneath the bar and unwrap it with your chest down, okay? You want to step underneath the bar and get your chest up here. So just looking at foot placement real quick, your feet want to be just outside shoulder width with your toes facing about 45 degrees, okay? You should be able to hit depth smoothly and push your knees out the entire time you're squatting, okay? So if your feet are too wide, when you go to squat, chances are when you come up, your knees are gonna start coming in, okay? If you're too narrow on your squat, when you go to sit, you're getting trapped by your own hips and it's gonna feel like you're gonna fall over, right? When I go here, I can't quite get to depth. That means my feet are too close together, okay? So again, just outside your shoulders, about 45 degrees. So now looking at the actual squat mechanics from the side, okay? When I have the bar on my back, I want my chest up, I want my core tight, and I want to be locking my hips and my quads. I'm squeezing everything as tight as I possibly can, okay? I got my nice squat stance. How I start the squat, I'm going to start it with my hips, okay? My hips are coming back, okay? And the thing that I see the most when people do this is that when they squat, they try so hard to keep their chest up as tall as they possibly can, okay? So when they go back, they're breaking their own back because they're fighting so hard to keep their chest up, okay? Now, what you want to happen is when your hips go back, your upper body wants to naturally kind of come over, okay? As you sit in your heels and you reach your hips back, you see how my body leans over my center of gravity, okay? Now, this does not mean that I drop my chest. It doesn't mean I'm just coming straight here, okay? I'm still keeping my chest up, but I'm having what we call a natural hip hinge, right? Hips going back, upper body comes over, right? Everything's nice and straight over my center of gravity, all right? So now as I sit back, I wanna make sure that I'm staying in my heels the entire time. So I'm keeping my flat back, I'm squeezing my core, reach those hips back, I sit in my squat and I'm pushing my knees out, okay? And I wanna sit all the way down. I do not wanna collapse in the pocket here, okay? So what you wanna do is make sure that you're staying tight and you hit depth, but not getting that swing at the bottom. So you don't wanna come down and drop your hips in and then come up, right? Everything should be like a piston, just straight down, straight up. So it should be here, sitting back, knees out, hit depth, drive through my heels straight up, okay? Now looking from the front, I want you to see the knees, okay? So when I go to squat, I got my chest up, pushing those knees out nice and tight, hit depth, drive through my heels, okay? Now when I'm driving up, you want to be looking up at the sky, right? Or looking at the corner of whatever room you're in, whatever it is. Keep your head up no matter what. If you go to squat and at the bottom you start looking down, chances are that bar is going to follow where your head goes, okay? So when you reach the hips back, you hit depth, start coming up, your head's coming up, 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 chest comes up, squeezing here. Along with keeping my head up, I want to make sure that I'm finishing the squat with my hips, okay? If I squat and I come up and I leave my hips behind, I'm not using my hamstrings and my butt effectively, okay? So I want to sit down, drive through my heels, keep my chest up, head up, and finish with my hips and lock strong here, okay? So everything's nice and tight and smooth all the way through. Okay. All right, so now looking at it all the way through, I'm gonna take one step straight back, I'm gonna take my squat step and my squat step. So you should be able to get into your squat position in 3 steps. Once you're here, you can kind of make some fine adjustments if you need to, but now you're ready to squat. So I'm pulling tight, I got my elbows back, everything's engaged. I'm squeezing my butt, hamstrings, legs back, everything I possibly can. All right, so now we take a nice big deep breath and engage the core and tight and brace. If you're wearing a belt, you push out against that belt, okay? So here we go, big breath, tight, bracing with the core. Now I'm gonna start the squat with my hips back, right? I'm gonna let the hips push back, I'm gonna let my upper body come over. As I push my knees out, I'm sitting deep into that squat. I hit depth, I drive through my heels and squeeze my butt, okay? All the way through, should feel nice and smooth. Everything's staying nice and tight, okay? Now I want you to notice my knees, right? I'm driving through my heels, but my knees should not go past my toes, okay? They can come in line with my toes, right? But I don't want my knees going past my toes, all right? Okay? When I come in, all I do is take a step forward, I walk, hit the rack, straight down, and I'm good to go. All right, so looking at some of the equipment that you want to be using when you squat. First off, let's talk about shoes. Do not wear running shoes when you squat, okay? Your ankle and foot squish around in there and it makes it uneven and whatnot, and they're just not supportive. They're not designed for squatting or weightlifting, so don't use running shoes when you lift in general. You want a shoe with a nice flat bottom, so Vans, Chucks, Converse, whatever. You can wrestling shoes. I've seen people do that as well. If you can make the investment, get a pair of squat shoes. You can see they have this giant heel on the back that allows you to keep your weight in your heels, as well as keep your knees in a lot better position, puts your ankle in a lot better position. When you actually step out of the rack and you kind of adjust your feet, they have this kind of like sticky bottom that plants them into the ground so they don't move while you're squatting, so you just feel really solid. So if you can make that adjustment, you can. Now, if you're just using flat shoes, okay, you can also put either a 2.5 or a 5-pound plate on the ground in your squat stance and actually step on those to act as the heel on the bottom of this. So if you're using just flat shoes, again, stick that plate right underneath your heel and it'll give you that same kind of feel as squat shoes do if you don't want them or can't afford them. So once you get heavy enough when you squat, you're gonna start using a belt, okay? Now you use the belt to brace against when you are squatting to create more pressure within the body. I have 2 different belts here. Most people like to use kind of more bodybuilding type style belt. The reason I'm not a fan of squatting in these is just because they change in width throughout and they're a little bit thinner. They work to a certain extent, but if you can grab a more powerlifting type style belt, like one of these, then I would highly recommend it. I think you can get lever belts. Yep, that's the one. Those are pretty nice, but this is just kind of a straightforward powerlifting belt. Again, it's the same width all the way through. It's a lot thicker and kind of more heavy duty. They're a little bit more uncomfortable, but they're gonna provide a lot more stability for you when you are actually squatting. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it helped you out some. Please start squatting correctly in the gym. Don't look like a fool, all right? Just take it light in the beginning. Just practice your form, overweight always. Once you get your form down, then you can start pushing the numbers. Make sure you're hitting depth. I appreciate you guys for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.